Yeah.
Damn, you stood me up yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Good morning, everybody. I'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start with a morning prayer. All-powerful and eternal God, splendor of true light and never-ending day. At this return of the morning hour, chase away the night of sin and fill our minds with the glory of your coming. Through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Jerry, you want to start us off?
Sure. Just from right here, okay? Oh, I'm sorry. That's your microphone.
Unless you want to be the administrator.
We got a lot of Jerry's.
Unless you wanna.
The younger Jerry.
Old habit. Old habit.
You gotta go by last name,
That's
yes.
right. Yeah.
Okay, on August 9th, for the Commissioners, I approved and executed the agreement with Chardon Area Chamber of Commerce for the use of the parking lot during the annual Classic Car and Bike Show on September 19th, 2021, with September 26th, 2021 as the rain date. For maintenance, I accepted the retirement resignation of Doris Musling, full-time custodian, to be effective August 31st, 2021, and granted permission to advertise for the position of full-time custodian. This position will remain posted until filled. And on August 16th, for maintenance, I accepted the resignation of Teresa McKinstry, part-time general communications clerk, switchboard operator, to be effective August 31st, 2021. And for water resources, accepted the resignation of Kurt Weber, network technician, to be effective August 20th, 2021, and granted permission to advertise for the position of network technician. This position will remain posted until filled. And then for number 2, on August 11th, financials, I approved a cash transfer from the general fund to community development as an advance on their fourth quarter 2021 funding in order to finish payroll.
Thank you, Jerry. Adrian?
Morning, Commissioners.
Hi, Jeremy. Adrian. You got Jerry in my,
You guys are my brain. We're all confused, yeah. Today's financials include a supplemental from Community Development and their block grant for additional appropriations needed to certify the Maple Leaf Residences project. Cash transfer from Juvenile Court to JFS for BCI web check fees paid for by JFS. Encumbrances include one from the Commissioner's Office to Environments for Business LLC for the furniture, furnishings, and equipment in the new county office building. Then and now from Common Pleas Court to Hinton Law Incorporated for appointed counsel fees from May and June 2020 that were not previously encumbered. Travel encumbrance from JFS to attend the National Independent Living Annual Conference. And among the vouchers are $750 from the Auditor's Office for attorney license renewals for 2 employees within the Auditor and ADP offices. $17,092.60 from the Commissioner's Office to Destination Geauga for the second quarter 2021 bed tax distribution, and $8,478.52 from the Juvenile and Probate Court to Weekly's mailing service for, I apologize, the $8,478.52, that was removed by the Auditor's Office this morning, so that is not on there.
Okay.
So that concludes the summary of the financials.
Make the motion.
second.
Mr. Spillier?
Aye.
Mr. Runner?
Yes.
Yes.
And then I guess I'll stay up for the next one. So the next one is the Commissioner's Office is requesting the board approve an encumbrance and expenditure to the Lake Geauga Recovery Centers to fund an assistant for the jail treatment program at the Geauga County Safety Center for the year 2021, an amount not to exceed $44,150.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Mr. Spillier?
Aye.
Mr. Runner?
Aye.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
They're not here today.
Okay.
This is the grant agreement for the FAA grant that was applied for by the FAA for their coronavirus funds for their airport rescue grant program. Funds, it's $32,000 for administration costs.
Okay.
This resolution authorizes the president to sign the grant agreement electronically.
Okay.
Need a motion?
I'll make that motion. Aye. A second.
Commissioner Spudler.
Aye.
Commissioner Lennon.
Aye.
Commissioner DeWort.
Yes. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning.
Hey, Nick. How are you?
Good. Good. Item 6 on the agenda is requesting the board approve and execute change order number 1 and final, decreasing the contract with Grade Line Incorporated for the replacement of the Thompson Road Bridge in the amount of $270. Basically just incidental items.
Okay. I'll make that motion. Second.
Commissioner Spudler.
Aye.
Commissioner Lennon.
Yes.
Commissioner DeWort.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent, thanks.
Have a great day. Department on Aging.
Good
Good
morning.
morning,
Hey,
Jessica.
Dave. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, good.
All right, so number 7 is a contract modification. So we did receive the grant for $487,533.89 December to use for our services January through December of this year. With COVID, we had to make a modification. They had initially funded us for transportation, but because our centers were closed at the time, we couldn't accept funding for transportation. We didn't want to lose that money. So we rolled it over into social services. So now that we are at a point where we have opened our adult daycare, we want to move money back into that transportation category so that we can buy vouchers for our adult daycare clients to come. So same amount of grant money, we're moving it to different funds so we can ensure that we collect everything that we got. We
Gotcha.
don't want to send any money back. So we're just decreasing our social service reimbursement units and moving that to transportation B, which is my out-of-county medical, and we're decreasing my adult daycare units. We were doing virtual adult daycare, and we were able to get reimbursed for that. Well, now we're open, so we're going to move the additional funds into transportation to buy vouchers for the adult daycare clients. So just kind of moving the funds that we can reimburse for.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Commissioner Spudler.
Aye.
Commissioner Lennon.
Yes.
Commissioner DeWort.
Excellent.
Great,
Thanks so
thank
much.
you so much.
Long time no see, man.
Good morning, Glenn.
How are you, Glenn?
How's it all doing this
Good,
morning?
good.
Wonderful.
This is with the new 2 people we have in the office, Sue and Tammy. This is to get them on the payroll and so they can sign and stuff.
Okay. I'll make that motion. Second.
Commissioner Spudler.
Aye.
Commissioner Lennon.
Yes.
Commissioner DeWort.
Yes.
Y'all have a
All
good
right.
day.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, bye, Glenn.
Yeah. It's good seeing y'all.
Yes.
Morning, Joanne.
Good morning, how are you guys?
Good.
Mine just has a lot of job descriptions. I went over every job description in the department. They are 10 to 15 years old. They're still talking about picking manifest and the driver thing, so I took and upgraded and revamped all of them, so it's actually what we're physically doing instead of what we were doing 10 years ago. So I'm just asking to approve all the new job descriptions.
Jerry, did you talk? Yep. Okay, very good.
Yes.
Motion. Second.
Commissioner Spudler.
Aye.
Commissioner Lennon.
Aye.
Commissioner DeWort.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Have a
much.
Good day.
You too.
Kathy, how's that? Yeah, okay.
Your turn.
Yeah. Lori, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Excellent.
4 items today. The first one is we're asking the board to approve change order number 2, increasing the agreement for engineering services for GPD, Chardon Township. They're doing the construction inspection. Of course, as the project's taking longer, we have to add some more money.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Commissioner Spudler.
Aye.
Commissioner Lennon.
Yes.
Commissioner DeWort.
Looking good though. I'll
So is,
Yeah.
so are they pretty close though, or?
We would be
I would
completely
hold.
done by now if we weren't waiting on some company, stainless steel.
Oh, is that what it is?
Disc filters, what else do we need? Master control panel for the electronics was finished, got tested, sent back. It's just a disaster this year.
With the materials?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so the inspector services, construction inspectors?
Yeah, that was a design engineering firm.
Oh, okay.
They do the construction, well, not management, but inspection services as they do the work.
Okay.
Is it possible for me to get the names and contact information for all these construction inspectors?
Well, the one construction inspector is Jeff Knox.
so I can have his contact information.
If you want.
Okay. I vote yes.
11 and 12, sanitary engineer position. 11 is to revise the position description that was provided to, showing the highlighted areas that we changed. And 12 is to advertise the position for sanitary engineer.
I'll make the motion on both.
Second.
Commissioner Spudler.
Aye.
Commissioner Levesey?
Yes.
Commissioner DeWort?
Yes.
Item 13 is just to approve the payment instruction form for the WDA loan agreement that we entered into a couple weeks ago.
I'll make that
This is
motion on
for,
that, Steve, also.
Yep, I'll second that.
Commissioner Spudler.
Aye.
Commissioner Levesey?
Yes.
Commissioner DeWort?
Yes.
Okay.
Very good.
Thanks for coming in, Jerry.
Yeah.
Or,
Thank you. No, I'm getting things
Good one,
done.
that's-
I'm getting things done.
wow.
Now you have the floor, sir.
Like go up there?
Sure, if you want.
Okay, sure.
Now we can say hi, Jerry.
Hi, Jerry.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good to
How are
see
you?
ya. Good
Thank
to
you.
see ya.
Great to see you all.
Thanks for coming
And
on.
thanks for the opportunity to spend a little bit of time with you here.
Sure.
I have been, I've been your state senator for most of Geauga, not all of Geauga, the way the district's divided, for a little over 6 months now. And we're on summer break, and I've been going around during the summer, meeting with the commissioners, respectively, in all 3 counties, and township trustees, city councils, et cetera, because I think it's important that they know who I am and what we're doing in Columbus, and I also get an opportunity to answer lots of questions usually,
Sure.
which certainly would welcome here as well. So I wanted to just give you a briefing on things that have happened in Columbus and a little bit of outlook as to what is going to be on our agendas for when we get back in session after Labor Day, and again answer any questions that you might have. I think we had I feel like we had a very good session. We of course had to deal with the budget, the biennial budget, which was a mere $75 billion spread out over 2 years. That's the operating budget, which derives itself from the tax revenues that the state gets. The capital budget will be starting. It's at a different schedule, and that'll be starting up this fall. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But the budget was rather comprehensive. We had a statutory requirement, or constitutional requirement, to have it done by the end of July. Excuse me, the end of June. And we were able to meet that deadline. And of course, it's the governor, the House, and the Senate all have to come together ultimately on the budget. The governor did not veto too many. He has line item veto capabilities with the budget. So, you never know what you're going to get. But we felt that the vast majority of what we were looking to see in the budget finally, that was left alone in terms of the veto. And included in that budget was a pretty substantial reform to how schools, or K through 12 schools, are funded in the state of Ohio. I'm sure you're well aware of the issue of the constitutionality question on how schools are funded. And I think we came to the House wanted the Cupp-Patterson bill, which they worked on in previous General Assemblies. The Senate, we had some different views on how that should be done. And we came to, I think, a very good compromise that allows for the growth and support of community schools, charter schools by another name, because we feel I personally feel those are a very important part of our community. I'm not saying that because I'm against public schools. I am not at all. But what we did was we separated how the funding follows the student, and so a lot of in public education who were originally having difficulty with some of this and with charter schools and so on, were very pleased with the outcome that we had in the budget. And we also threw a lot of extra money at it. Certainly is not as much as they were asking for in the original bill. But I think it was a good compromise, and the governor supported it. And school systems and charter schools, public school systems and charter schools were very much in support of it.
Jerry, real quick,
Yes.
when would that take place? As soon as, if that passed, would that be enacted? Would that get up and running
Yes.
within the next couple of years?
It took effect with the biennium budget, which is in effect now.
So when you're saying the funding follows the student, then, so whatever you're paying, X amount of dollars now, you'd be able to take that out of your school district?
No, this is the state support of the student.
Okay.
The
Oh, okay.
local taxes
Still would remain the same?
goes the way
Yeah.
the districts
Okay.
go, yes.
Okay.
This
I'm
is
sorry.
how the state contribution to the student per student cost will get allocated.
Okay.
It follows.
But is the state portion, what is that percentage-wise? I mean, is that, I imagine it's a lot smaller than your local.
It's I would say probably on average going to be something close to 6,000 per student. per
Okay,
year.
okay.
So I mean it's meaningful.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Meaningful. But every other district, the cost to educate is different. It varies quite a bit
Yeah.
depending on
Where you're at, yeah.
But that took a lot of, and I've been very involved. I'm vice chairman of the Higher Education Committee, and we also look down at some issues in K through 12 as well, and I'll talk about that in a second here. The other bill that I co-sponsored along with Senator Gabarone from Bowling Green was one that I've been wanting to do for 20 years, long before I ever contemplated public office, because it always bothered me when my friends and relatives would call me on election day and ask me who to vote for judge, because they don't know the judges, right? Whether it's local or statewide. And I did some research on it, and it turns out that the undervoting for state judges drops off about 18% from the top of the ballot. So you have what we call ballot fatigue. I don't think that's appropriate. People aren't getting tired. They're just simply not voting. They'll vote for the top of the ticket, for president and hopefully state senator and commissioner. And then when they get to judges, it's like, well, we don't know these people, particularly at the state level. So what Senator Gabarone and I did was we put a bill together, and it got done in 3 months. And we put it in the budget, so it's now law. It will be law 90 days after the budget passed. That for the Supreme Court and Chief Justice and for courts of appeals, all the districts in Ohio, you will have a political party designation next to your name on the ballot. And my committee, I'm on the local government committee, we had hearings on that, and we had a lot of opposition to that from the judges associations, the bar association, all the legal eagles came at us on this one. And my question to them simply off and on was, what's wrong with educating people to be able to get more of them to vote? By not voting, 1 million people didn't vote for judges last November, okay, that voted for other things when they registered. And the other part of it is that Ohio is the only state that has a partisan primary for judges. But then when they get to the general election, there's no political party designation. And let's face it, we're not trying to politicize judicial races any more than they already are. It gives people some idea what the candidates' views on life might be, right? What their philosophy is, not how they're going to decide individual cases. And so that we had great support in the House for that, and again, we jointly put it in the budget, and it is law. The law that we amended was 100 years old. 100-year-old election law in the state of Ohio.
Wow.
It finally got
That's
fixed.
great.
The other bill, Senate Bill 135, that I solely sponsored, was a higher education reform bill. It's 68 pages. I won't summarize it for you here, except that it addressed things like improved guidance counseling in our secondary schools. The ratio of guidance counselor to student in high schools in Ohio is 450 to 1. Which means there's basically not much guidance counseling going on. And when we talk about trying to improve outcomes, graduation rates, not support programs that are not preparing students to go get jobs in dealing with student loans, in my view, the solution to student loan is not forgiveness, because that's a moral hazard. The solution to student loans is to make sure that students in high school understand career options, financing options, the role a community college might play for the first 2 years of a 4-year degree. And we also included in my bill a second chance program, which is in the budget, that is going to allow students who have opted out of a 4-year program, let's say they drop out of Kent State after 2 years, we don't know what happens to them. Nobody tracks them. And we want them to have a career and to buy, have a family and buy a house and buy a car, etc. And so we're making available $2,000 grants to try to get them on board back into a program, whether it's at Auburn Career Center, Lakeland Community College, whatever, or back to a four-year school if they meet some of the requirements. We also dealt with free speech issues because there's been a lot of issues related to students who have felt that their free speech is being encumbered by professors who have a different view of things on the political spectrum. And we addressed that. I'm happy to tell you that this bill, I introduced it on St. Patrick's Day, and it was 3 months from the time I introduced it to when we passed it in the Senate, 31-2. So I had 5 of 7 opposing party votes on this education reform bill. It is now in the House. It's in their education committee, and we're working with them to try to get this thing done, hopefully by the end of September. It's the biggest higher education reform bill the state of Ohio has ever had. And I'm vice chair of the higher education committee, so this was a real personal thing for me. I should have mentioned this first because it's probably the most important to most people, and that is we passed in the budget the largest state income tax reduction in Ohio's history. It wasn't as big as the Senate wanted it. The House was somewhere lower than us, and we were at 5%. But we took $1.6 billion out of the tax rolls and are putting it back into people's pockets so we all, as citizens, can figure out how we want to spend that money, not let the state spend it for us. We compressed some of the brackets. We increased the non-taxable 100% tax increase or decrease for anybody who is making $25,000 or below. As a family, they will pay no state income tax. Again, we reduced some of the brackets, and I think it's a major move. We'd like to continue going with that, and so that we can significantly decrease the tax liability of residents in the state of Ohio. And obviously, we want to make sure also that the money we do collect is being spent properly. And we are very. I'm certainly a fiscal watchdog on things, and I think the Senate's view certainly is in the same. And I think I can say the same for the House as well.
Jerry, on this
Yes.
second chance, $2,000, is that a one-time?
Yes, it's a grant. What we did was we put it in the budget, Jim, as a pilot program to see how it works. We worked closely with the Chancellor, Randy Gardner, former senator, who is responsible. He's on the governor's staff, responsible for all of higher education. We worked closely with community colleges, and initially the 14 presidents of the public universities came at me pretty hard on this bill. They didn't like it at all. And we worked with them. We made some changes. I spent time. I had 75 to 80 meetings with the university presidents and their staffs to try to come up with compromise language. I was very happy with what we ended up with, and they became neutral, which was good enough for me. Okay, and the community colleges were very happy because one major change that we made is you can now go to a community college, or you will be when this is completed, and get a Bachelor of Science in Nursing degree from a community college. More local for the students, 50% of the cost, roughly, okay? And it meets a huge need in workforce development because we have a massive shortage of nurses. And we need to expand the ability of students to become nurses. It meets the needs of healthcare providers here. So I know that not every community college will actually do it because it costs money to have faculty to do a BSN, but it's a major move. And again, the community colleges liked it. The universities didn't like it because they thought it was going to take students away from them.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a zero-sum game. We're going to get new students who will go into nursing.
And further their education.
If they're like already a 2-year degree
Absolutely.
nurse. Yeah, and they can do it without having to move or go to a Kent State campus.
Yeah.
We want them all to succeed, certainly.
Yeah.
And so I was very, very delighted. And one of the nicest floor speeches in support of my bill came from one of my Democratic colleagues, Sandra Williams, who's running for mayor in Cleveland. And she was on board because this is good particularly for disadvantaged students, because of all the different things we've done to enhance the financing ability and program options for students who need to have the opportunity to get an education. Did it answer your question, Jim?
Yes.
We also did a lot of things in terms of supporting people with the infrastructure. You know, we have a lot of people that are in need, in fact, in the state of Ohio, and we have to take care of that. We have to make sure Medicaid is healthy. but we have to make sure Medicaid is not being taken advantage of. I can tell you, I'm as frustrated and disappointed as anybody on the quality of the administrative performance of our Bureau of Bureau of Unemployment. The amount of fraud and systemic failures is I don't need to spend a lot of time on that. I think we're all aware of that. Over $1 billion it is estimated of false claims were paid out. Year before last, or before this, our system was hacked, which is how people were getting Social Security numbers with their 1099s that were also false for getting unemployment dollars. The state has brought in a major accounting firm to come in and redo the systems, and not only hardware but also the systemic part of the systems to do a better job of administering that. But a lot of our tax dollars got wasted.
Yeah.
And people who needed the money weren't getting it,
yeah.
which is the bigger
I can't even comprehend how that could even possibly. It's like a problem that is happening right in front of you, and they couldn't stop it. I don't understand.
Tim, I will not make excuses for that department, but I
Yeah.
will tell you that when COVID hit last year, March, April, and the feds were doing all this stuff like overnight without reading bills and without understanding, and they're throwing all these things on the state to administer the $300 a week extra, for example, which we pushed the governor and the Senate to stop doing because of workforce issues. Unfortunately, he did it. But a lot was thrust on the states with very little notice, and if you take short notice and a massive amount of information on top of a system that is inherently not very good to begin with, you get what we got. So it's not an excuse, but our systems were not prepared. And even a great system might have struggled with what the feds threw at us. But that's sort of the best answer I could give to you.
I see.
But I think it's on a good path to perform better. We're also looking at, and I've had tons of input from constituents on this whole issue of critical race theory or anything like that called by a different name. And I've been looking at that for quite some time. I've actually had a one-on-one conversation with the governor about it. He didn't know a lot about it, and I helped him get up to speed. And because I'm so pushy on education issues, when I see what I consider to be indoctrination and rewriting of American history, I get upset by that. And so we are going to be taking some action on that subject. Because of the budget, we lost time and had to focus on that. But when we get back in September, we will be evaluating that and looking at lots of things. I've had more school board candidates come up now and ask for endorsements than I've never had it before.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if you
A lot.
the same thing.
Locally here.
Yeah, which is great. So I think, and I think parents are suddenly realizing that there's been a move afoot that is not good for our children and grandchildren. And some of the materials I have literally seen used for training teachers and used with students is appalling. It's appalling. I'm not against admitting that we had faults in our country in the past. We did. No question about that. But what I like to focus on is how we as a country have adjusted and made good on some of those policies that were not good. And, my 34 grandchildren, most of whom live in my district, I'm not going to stand by and let them be subjected to things that make them feel guilty for something that happened a long time before they ever came around. So we're going to be looking at that very seriously. I know Diane Grindell is got a bill in the House. It will come to the Senate. We'll decide what we do to it. But we will be taking action on that because it's just something we can't let continue on.
Yeah, very divisive. Yeah.
It is. And again, it's not education. It's indoctrination to a point of view. And I would be against it if it were on the other side of the political spectrum. It just is not education.
That's right.
It's not
That's
what
right.
we should be doing here.
That's right.
So we're going to be looking at, some really tough issues, and I'll just close in a minute here. One is on companies' ability to force vaccinations. And we can get into a whole vaccination discussion here at some other time, perhaps. But companies that there are, I straddle the middle with this because as a business guy previously, I understand that, you know, the government's intrusion into what we do as a business, as a private business, is something that has to be watched very carefully. Although the government intrudes on our businesses every day of the week, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, they tell us how to treat employees, how to educate them, how to do medical benefits, unions, et cetera. So the government's already in it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? You can't do much without it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm a bigger believer in constitutional rights, free speech, and personal decision making. And I believe that forcing people to take any actions like that and making it a condition of employment is very problematic.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a bill, Senator Brenner, I spoke with him on the way here. He's got a bill in place that we're going to be getting into committee in September, taking a look at that. We want to have testimony and hear from all the experts to make sure that in Ohio we have the right environment here that protects businesses and encourages business growth, at the same time protects free speech and individual rights.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably more time than you wanted to allow me, but that's kind of an update on what's been going on in Columbus. I've enjoyed being your senator and had a lot of interaction with people in Geauga County.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like you've been very busy and you've jumped in feet first, or head first, yeah.
Well,
So,
when I got elected, Tim, one of my grandsons said, "Grandpa, how long can you be a senator?" I said, "Well, if I get reelected, 8 years."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "And how old are you going to be?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to be 70, which I will be in November." And he said, "You better hurry up and get stuff done because you're running out of time." So, only a grandson can get away with that.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
That's great.
Any other questions?
I have
We're
one,
proud of you.
one
Thank you.
question, Jerry, is that, you know, as a county, past county commissioner, and I'm sure you've experienced the same struggles that we do with funding. Obviously, the local government funds continues to shrink and pretty much is almost on the verge of disappearing. I just, over the past, almost 9 years now of doing this, I just look at how much is involved that the state is paying to manage programs and manage dollars for these grant programs that, we pretty much operate the majority of our operation based on a sales tax.
Right.
And and I think that there's a misconception to a lot of the residents, when they're paying 6.75% that the county is getting all that money, when in reality we're getting 1%, and the rest of it goes to the state, and then we basically have to paw, scratch, and kick to get that money back. And I can tell you that I can see what some of the struggles that we have here within this county. I'm also involved in another county in another position that I see how much the struggle is even more so there with some other increased socioeconomic problems and just other situations that are really tasking some of the different divisions. That what is the dollars and cents? Where does it finally come to the point for the state to take a look at this and step back and say, it's costing us so many millions of dollars to just run and administer these programs, that why can't we just take a look at this and take a step back and say, give the counties one additional percentage of that sales tax and let them handle that money?
Mm-hmm.
Because truly, we're trying to promote our local businesses. We're trying to do everything that we can, and in all of these different counties are given incentives, these townships, the cities, all of these people are trying to grow that bottom.
Right.
But yet we're not getting our fair share of what we're bringing in. And it would just be an absolute game changer for us to be able to have, and this I'm sure from Lake County, is that we're not looking to double the size of government. We're just saying is that, Department on Aging just came up with this program, of basically providing our seniors with, meal programs and daycare programs and transportation for medical, that we can't provide that if we didn't have that assistance. But what could we really do for some of our residents if we had the ability of reaching the point to say, listen, state of Ohio, we get it, but we need to give us that additional 1%, and let us run our own counties and be able to be that much financially stronger.
I think that's a great point. And one of the beauties of my being in Columbus is that I've been a business owner and a county commissioner.
Yep.
And through the COVID period, most of it anyway, through last year certainly. So I have a perspective that a lot of my colleagues just don't naturally have because they haven't been both of those things.
Right.
And I'm a true believer that as much as possible should be forced down to the local levels, local control. State government and the feds are this on steroids, of course. You know, once programs get funded, they never go away. They very rarely get questioned. And one thing you can count on is two things you can actually count on. One is that if there are ideas of how we can take what are currently funded as state programs administered by a bureaucracy in Columbus that is taking money away from those who need to use it, that we can disseminate back down to the county level. I'm all for that, and I'd love to have that conversation with you on some specific ideas. I don't think realistically we're ever going to get back to where local government funding was back before they cut it. That would be, I mean, I'd love to tell you that it will, but I would be not truthful with you. I just don't think that will happen. But I think there's a lot of room in between to improve on that. State governments, either party, just bureaucracy has a tendency to self-perpetuate and grow. And I think our job as legislators and the way we manage the budget, we don't run those departments. That's the administrative, the governor's job to do it. But we exercise oversight and ultimate purse strings for programs. And so I'm wide open. And my job as your senator, I know you're referring to Portage County as well, who's very dependent on a lot of things. My job is to try to get all of you as much resources as I can. So when it comes to the capital budget, if you don't mind, I wanted to make sure I didn't forget to bring this up, is that I'm telling everybody that I'm going around talking to is that the capital budget we're going to be giving instructions out from my office to all of you and to the mayors and so on getting prepared to put proposals together for the capital budget. I can't guarantee anything's going to get selected in the final budget, but the sooner I know about it, and Diane as well, because it starts in the House, put together the program needs that you have. We'll have the parameters getting out to you so you know what qualifies and what doesn't. And I will work my tail off to get you as much as I possibly can. And Diane and I have to communicate, make sure that we're working the same list, because that is more effective, certainly. Ralph, I'm not dodging the final answer to your question, but I think the concept of moving things more from the state and giving you money back to do programs on your own, local control is something that is really important.
Well, and the other part of it too is, so Geauga County, we're at a disadvantage all the time too when we're applying for different programs, because they basically give us a means test, and all of a sudden they say we've got money, and all of a sudden somebody else is getting our portion of it, and it's not giving us the ability to be able to really manage our programs to the furthest extent that we could. And the problem too is that we have been very, very strong as far as maintaining a good budgetary measure and controlling costs, that we put the dollars into what it's actually going to and not the managing of it.
Right.
But yet we're not able to always pull those dollars. So it's a catch-22, because not only are we pulling those tax dollars in, but we're basically pulling tax dollars in to go to every place else but back to Geauga. Right. And I get it, fair is something you take the kids to at Labor Day, but it is not fair, to when you look at it,
I hear you. Is Geauga at the top end of the inside mills on property tax? Or do you have?
Off the top of my head.
Okay. So, one of the things when you talk about the means test is that, again, this is the way it's always been done. I'm not saying it's fair,
right.
but if there's taxing capacity available with any subdivision, whether it's a county or a city, they look at that as opportunity for you to fund your own programs. Okay, and I know we had that in Lake County because we were 1 point below the maximum on the inside millage. And whenever we got to things that were being distributed or proposals that were made, we were always at a disadvantage because they said, hey, you can tax your residents a little
That's
bit
right.
more. Well, yeah, but that's a nice theoretical thing,
right.
not very practical thing.
Right.
So I'm with you on that, and if there are some specific programs or things that you have in mind, I'd love to work with you on it.
Okay.
We'll take some action here.
Well, thanks for coming in today,
My
Jerry.
pleasure.
Really good to see you.
Appreciate it. My pleasure.
Great
Great
to
to
see
see
you
you
all
all.
here.
Really
Thanks.
appreciate the
Thank
hard
you.
work. Now, do you have time for questions from the audience?
Sure.
I'll just say I voted for the right man.
Yeah,
thank you.
there go.
Thank you for your representation and supporting the Constitution, individual rights and liberty.
Thank you very much.
Please run again. I'll vote for you again.
Well, thank you. Just got to wait 3.5 years, but I'll remind you when the time comes.
Oh, you won't have to. I'll be on it. And
Great.
thank you for that, their business with denoting judges by their appropriate party. That's been a bugaboo for a long time. You're sitting there going on the website trying to figure out who's who, because anybody that thinks judges aren't important is fooling
I will tell you,
themselves.
in my committee, we had, can I take a second?
Sure, go ahead.
We had 2 people come in and testify that are noteworthy. One was Paul Pfeiffer, name you guys might know. He was a former Ohio Supreme Court justice. And Cynthia, I think it's Cynthia Rice, Judge Rice. Is it Cynthia? Yeah. From the Court of Appeals in the 11th District. Okay? They came in and they both vehemently testified against my bill. So I was sitting up there on the committee's dais, up against a former Supreme Court judge and a sitting appeals judge. I'm not an attorney, but I dealt with attorneys enough that I could probably pass the bar. But, you know, they made terrible arguments against this bill. They said, Judge Rice said, and I hear she's a good judge. I don't know. I'm not in a position to judge that. But she said, if this bill, if passed, will eliminate judicial independence. So, in other words, basically saying that judges will not be able to they'll make party line decisions, right? And I said, Judge Rice, you have to sign up you're a Democrat. You have to sign up in a Democratic primary in order to get on the ballot in the first place, which doesn't show what party you're on. She said, yes, I did. So you already declared that you're a Democrat. And I said, has your name ever been on a slate card for the Democratic Party? She said, yes, it has. And I said, so you're telling me that those things do not in any way impact judicial independence, but putting a D next to your name in the ballot in the general election does? It was an absurd argument on her part. And Pfeiffer argued, he got up and said, well, people don't know who the judges are, and if we put a political party next to their name, more people are going to vote. I literally could not believe he said that. And I just said, Judge, thank you for agreeing with me. We want more people to vote, don't we? Right? And so it's a good move, and the lawyers and judges apparently just didn't like it. But too bad. This is what's good for voters, so that we can make good decisions when we go to the polls and exercise what people die for in other parts of the world.
You want to speak activists then?
Well, I wanted to do it for all judges, but we couldn't get that through the House, so we had to take the incremental approach and just go with Supreme Court, Chief Justice, and Court of Appeals. And actually, those are the judges that most people don't know about, really. So you know who your common pleas judges are in Geauga County, pretty much. So that's not necessarily as big a deal, but it just makes perfect sense, and I was just so happy to be able to get that through. And we were surprised a little bit that the governor signed it, but then we realized that his son is running for Chief Justice in the Supreme Court, so it probably works in his favor. Anyway, any other questions? Can I answer? Yes?
Jessica Gold from the Department on Aging. I think we've talked a couple times on Zoom. Nice to see you again. We just want to invite you to our agency to talk about the workforce shortage. I know you brought it up as far as nurses are going, and we have a concern in our agency, specifically with nursing home personnel, home care workers who are taking care of our elderly. There's already a shortage, and it's a struggle to have these individuals come to work and take care of the most vulnerable. Instituting vaccine requirements, and we're hearing people are going to be putting their jobs
let's talk before I leave. Okay? We'll set up a time and we'll get together. Anything else?
One more. I can't let you go without asking. You know the question I'm going to ask.
I know the question he's going to ask.
Okay. So, we're a member of NOACA.
Right.
I know.
And you know that NOACA makes race-based decisions. And so they have a criteria, and it's equity, equity, equity. They say that's their number one priority, and all the commissioners know this as they sit on the board. You knew that because you sat on the board also. And Lake County and Geauga County are impacted by those decisions. Our money is being redistributed to folks in Cleveland through their decision criteria. It's a federal requirement that populations over 50,000 are in an MPO. Doesn't mean we can't be a separate MPO, but the western corridor of Geauga County, due to the population that it's in, is required in order to get their dollars back. Unfortunately, we can't get our dollars back because of the criteria, and I filed a complaint with the Federal Highway Administration this year on the recertification process. So I believe that there's state action that can be taken to ensure that, number one, this organization is not violating federal law and using race-based criteria, because you know, as you and I, as a business, we can't make decisions based on race. It has to be, other criteria. And so I'm going to ask you to just put that on your docket as something to look at.
Yeah, we'll look at it. I will tell you that in my last year as commissioner last year in Lake County, I didn't spend a lot of time going to NOACA meetings. I had my alternate go a lot. So I'm not totally aware of everything that they were doing, but I am aware that, suddenly exit ramp determinations are now being based on things that were never based on before. Right. And have become with racial undertones. So,
but they have a federal requirement of social or of environmental justice, but NOACA has added on top of that local decisions based on another set of race criteria.
Right.
And I just think it's wholly unfair and unjust, and something that our state legislature should look at.
Let's look at it.
And so we can talk. I mean, I can give you a lot of information on it, very informed in terms of that organization, how they operate, and so on and so forth.
You know how to reach me. I know that.
I do. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, commissioners. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it, sir.
Jerry, anything? Anything else?
I have nothing. So the only other thing I'd like to do is I'd like to make a motion to request the board sign a letter to the Board of Health Commissioners regarding all of the calls that we've had of discontent with the Health Commissioner Tom Quaid, and basically to express our position in the sense that I have to support what the residents are calling us on, that this guy has really been very derogatory in some of his comments and some of his Facebook posts. I understand that it's his private page, but at the end of the day, it is really expressed where he stands on things. But I think that it also puts him in a position of me looking at it, that he doesn't have the ability to have an open mind of looking at the whole circumstance, rather just what he believes, and basically is going to kind of direct that what he believes is what everybody should be doing, and not willing to have flexibility. And this whole mask issue is just starting to blow up again, without a scientific background of being able to really say, is there proof that this is going to or not going to stop? So it's just at the end of the day, I don't want to put my own personal beliefs in the middle of this, but that I disagree with a lot of what he's saying. But I think that we need to put together a letter that basically notifies the board of our displeasure of what he's doing, and I think he's we could say maybe somewhat of a loose cannon there, and needs to be reined in or removed. And I think that's probably the best way to say it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'm very concerned. It started Sunday evening for me, and I started getting a flood of messages from, people that live in Geauga County that I don't know personally, but that were very upset. They were trying to find out what their recourse is or who they reach out to talk to in this matter. And, I think they look to the commissioners as, the ones that oversee the health department, which unfortunately we don't have any authority there. But I am concerned at the comments, and I understand it's his public Facebook page, but at the same time, he is supposed to be a trusted public official, and there's some weight that comes with that, I think, and the message that he is trying to put out to protect the public health-wise, he's undermining that. But I think with a lot of this antagonistic, aggressive context that goes back towards the population of this county that may not agree with him, that are either asking questions or there's somewhat of a lack of transparency. I got a voicemail last night from a very upset, actually she's a doctor here in Geauga County, but that she did talk to Tom personally, and he basically told her, he said, listen, I am not sorry for anything I said, and told her that she needs to go look up the definition of irony, because and then there wouldn't be a problem here. So that in itself, I think, is an issue. I've also reached out to a couple of the health board members that are appointed by the trustees and the advisory committee in Geauga County, made up of all the township trustees, and this is not the first time. If this was on its face just one issue, I could maybe chalk it up to just a bad decision. We've all done that, maybe posted something that you thought, well, that wasn't a good idea, and maybe taking it down. But this has been an ongoing narrative from this guy for the last 18 months, 2 years, dating back to, right around this time when the fair started, and some of the comments he was going on.
At least there's going to be a fair this year.
Yeah, and we were going on NPR radio and making disparaging comments about elected officials in this county, about disparaging comments about the public makeup of this county and the mentality of this community, and they get what they deserve if you don't make a certain decision, and it's just, again, it undermines his position. It undermines the health board, and the message that they are trying to get out there is to get people vaccinated. I think that's the main message, and this is not helping. Again, it's divisive, antagonistic, and I agree with Ralph. We need to, although we have no authority, we do have a voice, and we should express that, I think, to the board in a letter of to take some type of action, either some disciplinary action or resignation, but something needs to be done. And there's a lot of people very upset in this county about that.
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind?
Yeah, Skip.
So as one of the trustees in the county, and you know that the health board is a creature of the townships,
Mm-hmm.
I, like you, have received a ton of calls over the last day or so.
Yeah.
Over a period of time, people have periodically commented. The concern that I have, and in the calls that I've got, is that his personal opinion on things influences his professional judgment. And so he's got an ideology which he's free to express on his Facebook page, which he does regularly.
I'm getting a call right now from.
And so, so that the fear that a lot of people have is that translates into his judgment when he's giving advice. And so when he's giving advice on masks or separation or whatever it happens to be, then that destroys trust, because people don't trust his professional callings because of his ideology, which he's very free to share. He's got a higher standard, being the director of the health department. And so I would ask, as a trustee, I'm going to reach out to our trustees association and ask them to have a special meeting and see what the reaction is going to be to that. But it would help. You have a member on that board. If you added your voice to that request, to see if we can't have a discussion outside of the board. The board meeting is next week, And so I plan on attending. But depending on the outcome of that board meeting, we might want to have a special advisory group meeting to figure out a way to deal with it. And I
Yeah.
could use your help in that.
Yeah,
context.
and I just received an email this morning from a couple of the townships that have met already, and there's, I think there's some real distrust there with the township trustees. I think Clarendon actually put together some type of a letter last night that, it's the citizens of the Clarendon Township made our no confidence voice heard last night at the Clarendon Township meeting. So, I mean, this is, this isn't just a few people. This has been something that's been boiling up for months and months. Yeah, Jerry.
Tim, if I could just interject, the health commissioners in the state are accountable to the health director in Columbus. And the governor just appointed this week, or was it last week, maybe end of last week, a new health director. And that health director has to be approved by the Senate. We have advise and consent on that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have information that, I'm not aware of all the instances of complaints here, but as you aggregate them, or if you do a resolution, let me have all of that information, because when we question the state health director, these are things that we can bring up to his attention.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Well, just to clarify, the health director is not under our hiring authority, and it's all the public political subdivisions that have a vote and say to who's on the board. That's the city of Chardon, Aquila Village, Burton Village, and so on. So it's not just the townships; it's a bigger group. And I totally agree with crafting a letter, signing it, because as serious as this coronavirus is, and now the Delta strand and this and that, it really disrupts all the good workers of the health district that are busting their butts, trying to vaccinate as much people as they can, and whoever wants the vaccination will get it, and so on and so forth. So it really disrupts our thoughts in Johnson County.
Absolutely. Like I'm just reading one he posted here. It says, "How can you reject modern medicine and die like a medieval peasant?" I mean, is that something that a trusted public health would put up there? I mean, imagine if our prosecutor, for example, was putting racist comments up there in his private post. Do you think that would be acceptable? So this makes this, again, this is not the first time, or maybe like a mistake. I think this has been a progression of, and I'm sure he's in a very aggravating position where he gets a lot of people complaining about lots of different things, and I respect that part of it, and I'm sure it's very difficult to deal, but this is something completely separate in my eyes. So I would be happy to sit down and, Jerry, if we could put something together from the commissioners.
The three of you went there.
Yeah.
And I think the other big message is people need to wake up. If you want to protect what you have, you need to get involved. And because what we've got is we've got, trustees that I've sat in some of those meetings and have actually left before the end of the meeting because I was so disgusted to watch some of the positions that they took. So if you don't have the guts to stand up and fight for what you believe, you're going to lose it, and that's the truth. And I applaud you, Jerry. I mean, you're in a similar situation. You probably don't need to be doing what you're doing, and I'm not saying this braggingly, but I don't need to be doing what I'm doing here. But at the end of the day, it's about our families, it's about our neighbors, and it's about our communities. And that's the reality of it. And if the good people don't step up to the plate and stand up, we will lose what we have, and what a lot of other people have paid the ultimate price to give us. And that's just the reality.
He's going to eventually say, he's going to try to do away with the Amish, and I just sold a piece of property here, and the escrow account on the septic field is unbelievably high, and that you can't get any information from these people. He's going to do away with the way we live out here in a rural environment. and it has to stop. Not just him, there's a group of people that just don't like us living here in Geauga County.
That's why you gotta elect strong leadership. You gotta elect people.
Well, that's the reason we have you gentlemen up front, and who we vote for wherever we're local too. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay.
Did you have a question?
A comment, if I may. You made a very good point about people who sacrifice for this country. I haven't seen the Facebook post because I don't know how to get on Facebook, but I'm getting calls from veterans, and vaccination with the military is a very important issue. I know when we were deployed to the Panama crisis, they gave us a vaccination called Plague 2. Did so much, it did great harm. We were hospitalized, and we have heart issues based on that. Talk to your veterans. They're calling me. They're very upset about what he said. I didn't see it, and they couldn't forward it to me, but I hope that you take the veterans in consideration. They're highly offended that they would be put in a position to say that they're putting their fellow veterans, their fellow citizens at risk when they put their life on the line to defend the residents.
Yeah, thank you.
And if I could follow up with that, let's talk about the VA, hospitals, and the healthcare workers there. If you've had a hard time getting an appointment before, and now we have a workforce shortage, if we have nurses and staff walk off the job because they're making a choice for themselves, how is that better going to be here?
Very good point.
So we're just
absolutely true.
concerned about the snowball of lack of care.
Yeah.
Thank you, Justin.
So if we can, do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
Aye.
Yes.
Yes. Motion to adjourn?
Okay, move to adjourn.
Okay. Thank you.
Are you gonna use the air gun on you?
Yeah.
Remember that air gun?